Hello and welcome to the Catch a Lift Coaches Corner. I'm Cal Coach and Program Director Melissa, and this week I'm honored to welcome Chris Daigre to the show. Chris is a dancing instructor located in Seattle, Washington. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coaches Corner.
Thank
Chris,
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's tremendous having you on with us today. Let's get right into it, Chris.
All right.
Chris, if you don't mind, would you tell us a little bit about your life growing up and what would ultimately lead you to dance?
Well, I grew up pretty normal. Went to school, regular high school, had a very strong interest in sports. But my mother actually teaches she actually owns a dance studio, but I never ventured to dance. But one day I decided to go to the dance studio and just kind of check it out. And it still wasn't something that I was kind of very hesitant about because it just wasn't my thing. I mean, it's not basketball or baseball or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But what happened was I would get a little bored just watching the class. So one time I decided, let me just try this. Let me just try and see what this is all about. And it was challenging, but yet there was something about the way it made my body feel that kind of said, hey, I think I want to try this. I think I'm going to try a little bit more of this and see how this actually feels. So I took my first dance class and I really enjoyed it. It made my body feel excellent. So that's kind of how I got started. And then it just kind of progressed from there.
That's tremendous. How old do you think you were, Chris, when you first started? That first kind of time you really got in there and danced?
I probably was after high school, so probably early college years.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was it wasn't something that I had done my whole life, but it was something that I got inspired to do and said, okay, this is good. And
Wonderful.
yeah.
So you would have an opportunity would come along where you would start subbing. You had an opportunity to sub in as an instructor at the dance studio of your mother's. Would you talk to us about that and what that did for you?
Yeah, I was just a participant in the class like everyone else. And I was taking classes feeling good. But one day my mother had to actually leave to go out of town. But you have a business, it's a dance studio, so you want to keep it going. But there was no designated substitute. So I was kind of nominated by the students to be the sub. And the criteria for me being the sub was just the fact that I was her son. And
Love it. Yep.
maybe students would listen to me more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, okay, well. And I did it. I did it. It was very challenging because the challenging part was trying to remember what I'm supposed to be doing. So I had a little cheat sheet on the floor that I would look at every 30 seconds. I would go back and look at the cheat sheet to see if I was doing it correct.
Yeah. That's awesome. At what point during that time, like subbing for her and getting that opportunity to instruct, did it enter your head during that point? Like, maybe this is something, I want to pursue as a career. Or how did that kind of come about for you?
I think it was slow going because I wasn't really sure what I exactly wanted to do. But as I started just continuing to teach and take classes, it just felt like this might be something that I would want to continue to do for a long, or as a hobby or something because I
Right.
wasn't sure what I was wanted to do as a profession. But what I started to realize is that a lot of the stuff, well, and getting paid also helped to
Right.
shape the fact of this is maybe something that I can do and also get paid for. So at that point, I was thinking, well, maybe I might want to get a little bit more involved in this. So that meant learning about finance and writing grants and all the business side that goes along with any kind of occupation. And that was kind of interesting too because they were connected together. The dance and the business was connected together. So you were kind of enjoying and learning at the same time, which is not always the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I just progressed and didn't have to use a cheat sheet as much. Just kind of took it little by little and really started to enjoy it. And again, it made my body physically feel good, which
Yeah.
oftentimes is not always the case with certain kinds of work.
Was
So
it Chris, was it the act of how your body was physically feeling that really turned you on to dance both in your personal life and as a career, because again, like you told us, you were very into sports and athletics. Um, what was it about the dance that's just really grabbed you and held you all of these years?
You know, when I think about stuff like that, I think about living and what we do on a daily basis. And what I notice of why I keep saying about how it feels is because I feel like a lot of what we do involves tension sometimes. What I mean by tension is there's an expectation, and sometimes that manifests itself in the body in very strange ways. But the dance and the movement, excuse me, and the movement of the joints and how that makes you feel it cognitively, it helps too because you're able to think better, you're able to rest better, you're able, so it kind of connects to other parts of your life, you know. So it's really kind of very inspiring to work in that way. And I had gotten to a point where I don't think if I had stopped, I would have my body probably would have not felt very good.
Yeah.
So I sort of opened up something like the Pandora's box about
Right.
health and things you need to do. And it didn't require a lot of equipment. It didn't require a heavy expense. I mean, it was just something that, and it connected into your mind and body working together because you're working with your body, and a lot of what you do comes from your own brain and working. So yeah.
Chris, and I know we're gonna get into this a lot more as the show goes on, but maybe on this front end, would you touch on a little bit the mind-body connection piece that is present during dance?
Well, the thing about dance and just working with your mind and body, you have to be very present. And I just don't see a lot of things that we do that is really sort of exemplifies that. Like, like I'm saying that um, it's an interesting question. Let me give it a little bit of thought here. Um, it's I think a lot of times we are detached from what we do. Sometimes, like we're just going through the motions, but the mind could be elsewhere. And to bring them both together, sometimes that could be a little foreign for people. It could be something
Right.
new. That's why meditation sometimes is a great thing, and I think a lot of people are getting into it. But something about moving the joints and the body and moving to rhythm as a whole, you have to be very connected to what you're doing in that present moment.
Yeah.
And that is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be long, but if you never connected in that way, it's very different. It's inspiring. It's not any kind of external medication that you're taking. It's something
Right.
within your own self that enhances what you do, and that to me is extremely important because it's
Yeah.
when we're talking about self care and treating your body right and connecting to your mind. It's kind of like a practice. It's kind of like a way of living, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it doesn't require much, but it does require sort of a consistent dedication to it. And I think you learn to appreciate your body and appreciate other people too, you know, because it's I don't know,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like that the concept of, right, it's a way of living,
yeah.
that movement, like, I like that. Um, and, you've already hit on some of them, but Chris, talk to us just in general. What are some of the benefits of someone pursuing dance both physically and mentally?
Um, I think that the benefits are everyday things that we do, like from sleeping. I sleep much better because of the way I move. You know, I tend to do things with more of a focus, and what those things could be anything from cleaning to carrying things. There's a definite consciousness about what you can do with conscious body mechanics and movement, since you know what it is, you know not to lift that particular item in a certain way because it will hurt your back, because you've had the experiences of connecting stability, stabilizing the body. You even from going to bathroom to anything you can
Right.
imagine, it's like when you're not people, because I always wonder why people fall and have accidents, and I realize that there's not a connection sometimes to the mind and the
Yeah.
body and being able to, because the movements that we do every day are automatic. We don't really think
Right.
about them. But if there's a situation where you don't have that and you're not thinking about it, and you have some kind of physical ailment or something, it's easy to get injured or
Yeah.
or yeah, or have a problem. It's really like having sort of like an automatic, because we all have it, but when oftentimes we have injuries or we have certain things that incapacitate us, it's hard to keep those things, the
Yeah.
automatic nervous system just
Right.
doesn't work as well. You having had a connection to your body and having moved a certain way, you have that reserve to kind of call upon, because it's very interesting too. And I know we'll get more into this a little bit later, but
Yeah.
it is very interesting when you don't have certain facilities that you
Right.
automatically took for granted. You know,
Yep.
it's very it's a very interesting place to be. Yeah.
So this is probably a good place to kind of transition into some of that, Chris. A number of years ago, you were diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
Yeah.
Chris, talk to us about that time and about being diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Yes. Well, prior to just pre-Parkinson's, I was really teaching a lot and feeling good, and that was not too long ago, like over maybe. Well, let me back up. I think I've had Parkinson's longer than the diagnosis. That's kind of how it works, because you
Right.
don't actually
Yep.
go and get the diagnosis until you get to a point where you feel like there's something wrong. But it's this
Yeah.
very slow progressing disease, so you really don't always notice it right away. You start to notice it, but it's not like a big immediate change.
Chris, what if you don't mind me asking, what were kind of some of the changes that you were experiencing that would lead you to go in at that time?
Well, balance was a big deal. Since there's no, I definitely had a hard time balancing and actually getting out of a car. Everything I would do would be much slower. And even with some of the cognitive things of memory and just remembering to do certain things, it would be very much so like I'd be at a grocery store and I'd be reaching in my wallet to get a credit card, and it would just be slow. It's like moving in quicksand, and consciously I want to move, but it just my body is just not responding. And just the movements I used to do in class in terms of teaching, I couldn't necessarily do them at the pace that I
Yeah.
used to. So and it would be very strange feeling to want to move like you had moved in the past, but not being able to. It's just so everything was much slower. And the big one is rolling over in bed. These are things that we just take for granted,
Right.
and I
Right.
assume most of us just roll over. But when you can't, I mean, and it's like I said, what happened to my abdominal muscles? I mean, where how come I can't move to roll over? It's just wow. It's very interesting and humbling,
Yeah.
to just
I imagine that had to be very scary as you didn't know what was happening, like you said, right? I mean, the day you received that diagnosis of Parkinson's was obviously not day 1 of Parkinson's. You'd been dealing with these symptoms building for quite some time.
yeah.
Were you scared during that time before you had the diagnosis and really had a name to what was happening?
No, not really, because before the diagnosis, it was the movements hadn't they I knew there was something going on, but I didn't quite know what it was. But it didn't really incapacitate me or really what I would say um, keep me from doing what I needed to do on a regular basis in terms of
Yep.
teaching and movement. So I just figured, well, something's going on. Let me just get it checked out. But I was okay mentally at that time because it was
Okay.
just I was still able to work in full capacity. Nothing was really. an issue at that point.
Talk to us about receiving that diagnosis, Chris.
Wow. Well, there's a couple of surprises that well, first of all, I didn't know. The only thing I knew about Parkinson's was Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali. That's
Right.
and it was a physical, visual image of them, you know. And
Yes. Yep.
so when I heard Parkinson's, I thought, wow, somebody like Muhammad Ali, who was, you know, just tremendous in terms of his physical abilities. And I thought it was more of, him dealing with head injuries and being hit so many times
Right. Yep.
would be the cause of it. But when I got the diagnosis, what surprised me is the fact that I didn't feel sad or angry at that moment. I felt kind of a relief to know what this was, and um, it was, and I sat with a moment. It was interesting because it was like, well, something, your life is going to change,
Yeah.
and I immediately thought about learning about Parkinson's, because if I have Parkinson's, I want to know as much as I can about it,
Right.
just to be able to um, function and just to be able to anticipate what might come. So it was a little surprising that I wasn't upset. I didn't get upset, or I wasn't sad, or there was a little bit of, and even the fear was a little not so bad, because it was I just felt okay. I felt
Yeah.
like, and they immediately said, this is a long progressing disease. There's things you can do to help slow it down and combat the
Yeah.
disease, and stuff that you do this, and there's a lot of, so people live full lives with Parkinson's. So
Right.
I heard those things right away,
Yeah.
but it didn't, and I felt okay. It was like, and I decided right away to tell people. I didn't want to hide it.
Yeah.
I just said it because it sort of had a very therapeutic, something I needed to do, to not to, and be able to talk about it. And since I didn't know that much about it, I wanted to find out as much as I can,
Right.
be able to tell people what's going on, and yeah,
So, you know what, to me, what's so interesting about Parkinson's, and you kind of said it on the front end for a lot of people, right? It's that visual that you think of. And um in my own life, my my dear grandmother of blessed memory, she had Parkinson's disease. And what I remember most out of it, Chris, right, was that visual. She was, you know, she was quite old by the time I came around, but she lived right across the road from where I grew up. And so I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house.
yeah,
And when I was real young, she was still, somewhat mobile. I have some memories of, um, going to Coney Island and eating hot dogs. And, there's some stuff like that, like in our town and different stuff. Like I remember that of her. But the visual that really sticks out though is obviously in those later, very advanced years, her being bound, basically just in a recliner.
yeah,
And once in a while, maybe once a day, if they could get her up, with a belt around her waist and, help her move, walk a little bit. But that visual stuck with me my entire life, right?
wow,
And so definitely, when I had the opportunity to meet you and talk with you and see the tremendous things you were doing, I was just so blown away, Chris. Um, and when you and I met, one of the things you said about, after when you got your diagnosis, you said, something the effect of, I move for a living.
yeah,
I move for a living. Chris, talk to us about moving for a living and having Parkinson's. How did you make, the decision, or what did it look like for you to decide that you were going to continue this lifestyle?
yes. Well, I want to say one thing before I answer that question. I really like the way you explain things, and you make it very comfortable to be here. So I
Oh,
just,
thank you, Chris.
in
I
case I forget
appreciate
to
that.
say that, I said it before, but it's kind of like, I want to make sure you realize
Oh,
that
thank you.
it's fine.
Truly, thank you.
Okay. So now I forgot the question that you.
Talk to us, about making that conscious decision that, you're
Yeah.
gonna continue to move and pursue your lifestyle.
Yeah, I realized that I wanna teach dance. I've been doing it for a very long time, and I want to continue to do it. And, my thought was that I should teach dance for people with Parkinson's. And I thought about it and I said, "This is what I wanna do." And because what I realized is that the movements that I have been doing are very complementary to helping with Parkinson's disease,
Yeah.
helping to combat or slow the progression, you know? And so I thought that that was that my words that I said to myself was, "Well, you have a choice. You can either do something or you can do nothing." You
Yeah.
know? And I just decided to do something because I felt inspired to do something, and I didn't really have didn't know exactly what to do. But somebody mentioned that there's a lot of organizations that support Parkinson's work and are really, would be very probably interested in something like that. So I checked them out, went and talked to them and told them what I wanted to do. And they happen to have a grant proposal program where you can write mini grants and for anything dealing with Parkinson's stuff that would help. So I wrote a proposal to teach classes and told them what I would do, and they said, it was approved. And what was interesting, it was right during the time of the pandemic, and it was also during the time where we were all getting on Zoom.
Yep.
And
Yeah, the world was going to Zoom.
right, and what's interesting was that I was not able to teach my in-person classes anymore because it was, kind of a lockdown
Right.
situation. And so that was kind of not happening, but at the same time, the Parkinson's class for people with Parkinson's was doing great because it was online and it's accessible. People don't have to leave their house to try to find a place to have a class, So that worked out really well. And the most interesting thing that I realized that I wouldn't have realized is that um, Parkinson's affects everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no limit in terms of age or
Right.
race. It tends to be a little older, but it's a lot of variety of people. But I on the class that I did online, it started off, kind of slow, but then it gradually increased. So I have people from all over the country taking the class and really feeling good about it. I mean, I think the class has been going on for almost 2 years, and some people have actually been in the class for 2 years.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah, no,
That's
they're
awesome.
yeah, and it's really what I did was I said, this is the movements that I do because I think what helped me is I actually have Parkinson's, so I was able to create these moves that really actually help
Yeah,
and for certain kinds of rigidity that you get in your body. Like certain movements may not be as good for Parkinson's, but certain movements are. So I just took it from the fact of what I've already been doing and kind of modified it for Parkinson's students.
that's incredible. And Chris, just wanna step outside the box here real quick. I meant to ask you earlier in the show, but we, I missed a spot there. But if you would, Chris, would you kind of explain to anybody listening what Parkinson's disease is and kind of how it affects the body?
Yes, and I've always, when that question always came up, I've always tried to remember the, the definition in the book, like, and my memory is not that great. So I'm like, okay,
Oh,
so
good.
here's my explanation of Parkinson. It's a neurodegenerative disease, and it's like movement disorder. So that's kind of what you're dealing with. And there's a certain chemical in the brain cells called dopamine, which actually helps to, well, it doesn't help it. I mean, it's the prime source of signaling the movement from the brain to the body. So a lot of the dopamine and was what's starting to happen with Parkinson's is some of the brain cells are dying.
Okay.
So there's a definite decrease in dopamine, which is, helps you to move and cognitive skills. So it's really a lack of dopamine, and it oftentimes you see people with tremors, and I have tremors, and this kind of uncontrollable movement, and I'm not sure why, but because there's the lack of dopamine, the body moves that way, and sometimes it can become very rigid. and some of the automatic, sort of called automatic functions, non-motor functions, like maybe non-motor functions. But
Okay.
can't think of non-motor functions. I guess things like jumping and walking; those are functions that you do. But there's some other ones like, um, uh, where am I? I think I'm having a Parkinson's moment now. I can't remember.
All, all good, Chris. All good.
Yeah, and it just so you have to take medication that is they call it carbidopa levodopa. I take that like 4 times a day, and actually that is brings dopamine into the body.
Okay.
The medication is actually dopamine. So you take them, but it doesn't. Think about it, it doesn't last very long. It'll last maybe sometimes 3 to 4 hours. So you have to take them.
Really? It's actually dopamine though.
Yeah, it's actually
That's
dopamine,
very interesting. Okay.
and then it lasts for mine. It lasts maybe 3 to 4 hours, and I have to take
Okay.
another dose. So the idea is not to get totally depleted of dopamine. So you have when you're taking the medication, they call it an on period. That means you can function and do the things you need to
Okay.
do. And when you're not taking it and the time has gone by, they call it an off period. And an off period, it's like night and day. I wonder why they call it on and off, because it's such a
Yeah.
distinct difference in the two. Like sometimes you can hardly lift your feet, or you can hardly get out of bed, or yeah, just simple things that we don't even think about. It's just,
Right.
yeah, because usually I would like if I'm walking, sometimes we shuffle our feet. So that's because you have to look at your feet, focus and concentrate, and take one step at a time. So and it's just a very it's given me a big appreciation for the way the body works and how all of
Yeah.
that is connected, because it's very I don't know, it's just the strangest thing to want to move and not be able to move.
Right. Chris, talk to us a bit more about the community online that you have with the dance class that you teach, and how have you seen these folks be affected both mentally and physically by this outlet?
Yeah, the Parkinson's is interesting because it there's a lot of support for it, but a lot of support is sometimes coming from people that don't have Parkinson's. So I think that um, building a community is is important, and the community is kind of organically built through connections, and these connections are generally people with Parkinson's. And
Okay.
one of the biggest things I think that I've noticed, and not so much for myself, but I can see getting to that point, is there's kind of like an isolation that you face, where you 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 can be limited in your ability to do things, and with that comes a sense of isolation, because you may not be able to connect or do the things you used to do with people. And so, because people that don't have Parkinson's and people that do have Parkinson's, the communication between that kind of is limited in a way, because you want to you a lot of the things you talk about and say when you have Parkinson's is almost is it uh, you it's like if you're talking to somebody that has Parkinson's, they kind of know what you're talking about, even if the words are not said, because
Yeah.
they've experienced some of the symptoms probably themselves.
Right.
And it's not to dwell on the symptoms, and it's not, but it's something where it's almost like, to be a part of this group or to be a part of this community, you come in with an experience of having this disease. Not to say that people, because I know I think more teachers are teaching Parkinson's classes, but they don't have Parkinson's.
Right.
So their classes, it can be, I don't know, there's something about the community that has been built from people that have Parkinson's. There's a genuine inclusiveness that is, I don't think it can be matched, because it's more than if you feel bad about not being able to do something, there's an immediate understanding
Yeah.
and camaraderie amongst. There's always the community that has Parkinson's will always have something to tell you or to help you to progress forward, and it's because you know that they have the same thing.
Right.
You know they're feeling some of like everybody's unique in their symptoms in terms of the progression, but everybody goes through a lot of the same things. Maybe not in the same order, you know,
Right.
but it's a definite connection. So the community, how it works for what I'm doing and how it's progressing from the class that I'm doing is that we have our class, and then after the class, there's a social time. So we're all on Zoom, you know, and some people are extremely funny, you know, and they have very clever things to say. But several things happen from that. One of the things is that there's an immediate time to have to express yourself and how you feel and have somebody an audience listen, because when we're isolated and you don't have that connection with people, it's you need something to connect with. So a lot of people are able to express themselves and to um, be heard, like by an audience of peers,
Right.
and the connection of movement first and how that makes the body feel, and you have an immediate connection there, like it's this shared experience that we've all done for an hour. And then after that comes the discussion, and even though this is Zoom and we have connected because everybody moved together, and
Right.
to do it, to reverse it, to try to have people connect and without a shared experience is okay, it's doable, but it's not, it's still, people can feel excluded. It's,
Right. Yep.
I'm not quite sure, like they may not want to turn their camera on, you know, because you just don't know. But if you can do something where you are doing it as a group and you're moving together, when you, when you, when the movement stops, I think there's more of a sense of wanting to communicate and connect. So
Yeah, I can really appreciate that and understand that through the lens of, what we do at Catch a Lift, right,
yeah,
Chris, with our community. And that was one of the things, when you and I first had the opportunity to speak, and we talked about, community, and we see that with our community, right, Chris? There's, so many tremendous people in this world, that are there to help our veterans in various ways, shapes, or forms.
yeah,
However, there is definitely a distinct difference, and speaking of it as a veteran myself, but when I'm able to be with a group of veterans, right? And even if, we had very different experiences in the military, and everything, we have this common thread. And especially, now, at Catch Lift, like I said, we do things like you're describing, or we'll have a warrior weekend and we'll bring in, 15, 20 of our veterans, and we get together and we go to the gym and we work out, and we might not have known each other well before this. We're coming from all over the country. We get together and, we sweat together for an hour. And it's it's funny because it's just like what you're describing, right?
yeah,
We're done at the gym and now, like, we're a community, we're brothers and sisters, and people start, opening up and sharing things. And
yeah,
there's something about that shared thread of, just, like with the Parkinson's group, you understand the language, you understand, even
yeah.
if it looks a little different on each person, you get
Uh,
it. And this, that's the same way, our community definitely works, and what we've modeled, our programs at Catch a Lift with. So I think it's absolutely tremendous what you're doing in your community, Chris. Um,
Thank
with, folks with Parkinson's. I cannot say enough about it. It truly warms my heart. Um, we're gonna have, a lot of people listening to this, Chris, that are dealing with various, mental and physical injuries. Um, and I think something, I would definitely really like to know from you, when you were describing, like let's talk about a time, when you're off, so to speak, you're not on the medication, and it's an off time, and so it's, you're not feeling good.
Right.
What do you do in that time, Chris, to be able to kinda stay, mentally centered and just not kind of, I'm not sure even, what the words are here, but just, succumb to either, grief of, your former body, or just, really feeling sorry for yourself or something? Like, how do you continue to hold that line and push forward, mentally and physically?
Yeah, that is a very good point because I try to stay as optimistic as possible at all times, but there are days when it just hits me that this is your life. It's
Yeah, yeah,
and it's not a dream. It's not going to end. It's going to progress to a point where there might be some challenges, or there might be some things that you do now that you're not going to be able to do. And that thing pops up periodically. But I guess right now, I'm it's so interesting because it's I think about things in a positive way. And that we always hear people say that, think about things in a positive
right,
way. But along with that, I have to do something. I have to do
yeah.
something. And I have to give something, or give. Like I did this one interview and they asked me, what advice would you say? And I would say, give more than you receive.
Ooh, love
There's
that.
some,
Oh my gosh, powerful.
there's
Give more than you receive.
yeah, there's something about giving that you don't really think about, but when you do it, it creates this feeling of empowerment. And because what are we here for? I mean, we're not here to take. I mean,
Yeah,
if everybody were to give and focus more on that, and that in and of itself, because that's what life is about. So if you don't have certain things, certain physical attributes, or certain kinds of, because this we're very interesting, and I'm gonna say country because I don't know what the whole world is like. I mean, I personally, I think there's some more interesting things in the world, more so than this country. But we're very consumer based
right.
and
Yep.
very, wanting to keep up with the Joneses and wanting to do this. But that very internal idea of give more than you can receive, and I think it helps to, um, well, first of all, to let you know that you can still contribute. That's number one. You're not just ostracized and say you can't do anything, so we don't need you. I think everybody is needed, and but for myself, I really try to keep those thoughts in, and to be consistent in feeling that way. And then what I do on a daily basis is try to help somebody, or just do yeah, it can be a challenge sometimes because it does
Yeah.
and I've allowed myself to feel bad. It's okay to feel bad. It's
Right.
not going to be something you're going to be able to maintain 24/7. But it's I would just say it is doing something. It's doing something that makes um, you feel a certain way, feel better. Like when I like just an example, when I love my Parkinson's classes, and it's good, but I feel like I can do more. And that's when I decided to take a look around, and I came across this incredible website with whoever did the logos, and the whole thing is
Yeah.
brilliant. The whole thing is brilliant. I mean, I could say, because it stops you in your tracks and you go, what is this? And then when I found out the platform is fitness, hold on a second, let me go deeper into this, just that whole concept. So whatever you guys are doing there, I'm sure it makes you feel better than to say if you weren't doing this, and this
Oh,
wasn't.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the power, and to be around people that talk like this and give inspiring words and say things. It goes deep into your soul, and when you get
Yeah.
to your soul, and it's about positive things, all the stuff about being upset and guilt. It's still a part of your life, but it just can't take over. I mean, that give more than you can receive. If that's what this is about, I think we find the key, because you got to help others, because
Yeah.
everybody's got something going on.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Nobody's scot free. I found that out too, where people that tend to see it visually, and that's what America does to us. Sorry to say, it's just it makes us
Yeah.
believe that the green is the grass,
Right.
and it's not.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point, and, yeah, I think it's oftentimes, Chris, right? Like, if we look out in that very broad lens, and it seems that way, right? Like, everybody else has an easier lot, there's something else, better, greener out there, and then it's like, okay, if we pull in that focus and, if I look at my life today and what I've got going on in my family and stuff, and it's like, no, it's green here too, right?
Yeah,
But it is very easy to, allow ourselves to get sucked out kind of in that big sphere, and you can definitely spiral very fast. I know
yeah.
that.
Like if you have an ailment or something bothering you, and you do something about it, that's just a certain exercise or a certain connection that you follow through with, and it makes you feel better. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's very huge. Yes.
It's just one little thing, because that's the other thing. I All these different thoughts come about. I used to think about quantity. Now I'm more like quality over quantity, because
Yeah.
it's just all these little things that I think about help me, because I just it's to go to those dark places. You go there, but you can't stay there, and it's just you don't want to stay there. Um, but just like it's important for me to um, connect, and it's important for me to connect and to express myself. That's my remedy. Is like I'm not. It took me a while to be able to speak. I used to be so shy. I couldn't even we're like how we're doing now. I mean, I couldn't even
Yeah.
see the screen. It's like that's really bad. I'm like, she's on the screen. What's the problem? So I don't know. It's just doing things that you know, healthy lifestyle things, and I think the Parkinson's has made me focus a little bit more. Has slowed me down and made me really realize what is important, and that's a big deal.
That's huge. That's huge. Chris, what would you say to any veterans or individuals listening today that might be interested, in taking this route of, dance movement, but they don't really know where to even begin? What would you say to them?
I would say that um, be able to articulate what it is, why you want to do this, and I think that through Cal and information that I can um, produce, be able to have a discussion about, you know, why you like it, why it's appealing, and then have an opportunity to take a class like the class that I'm doing. I think is good for anybody. The average age in the class tends to be a little older, but I think that it's very important to get off to a good start and an
Yeah.
understanding of kind of what you're trying to do. Like if dance is appealing, like if I was talking to somebody, they asked me, what does dance mean to you? I have words, like I say, self-expression, um, consciousness. I mean, just words, because dance to me is a form of something that comes from within you. It's not, you don't, like teaching dance is a whole nother thing. That's where you're talking about taking ballet classes, technique, and, just 8 hours a day. No, not 8 hours a day. But there's something about the freedom to express and explore. But along with that, there is a guideline that you're working into it. Like an example would be, I want to dance, but you notice there's a lot of rigidity and movement hindrances. So the thing would be to start with, movement that increases flexibility, and learning to move with relaxation, this is my thoughts because there's so much stuff out there, but I think that if somebody's inspired by what this conversation we had today about wanting to try something, I would definitely want to connect with them and give them more of a personalized
Right, right.
um, thing because it's really because I believe like when I saw your website and saw what you guys are doing, I believe that the resistance exercise and the strength go right along with range of motion.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, it's so combining those, and oftentimes you don't see that, you know, and my thing is that once you realize what a person's movement capabilities are and what they're interested in and how and where they're at, we have design programs that meet the needs of and the abilities of what people can do. You know, the other thing with dance is that it's the use of music and rhythm. You know, I used to do things like the Parkinson's class I teach. It's a lot of range of motion and breath, and relaxation, and that feels good. And then there's another section of the class where you layer music to that, where you're actually taking some of the movements, some of the isolated joint movements, and moving them to rhythm music. And that music is anywhere from Motown was big. I mean, Motown has a lot of songs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and then just there's the Latin music, and so and all of that stuff brings out not restriction, but more like freedom of movement and expression. But to get the soul of everything, you want to be able to have some understanding of what your body needs to do. Because I believe in having fun, but also education about it too. In terms,
Right.
because like if you have back problems or shoulder mobility issues, I mean, there's certain things that you can do to help with that. So that was a very long answer, but
Well, no, it was a great answer, and, I know you and I are definitely gonna be, talking more, going forward about, ways to be able to bring dance to our athletes, um, because there seems like, like what you're just describing, there's such a natural fit there, right?
yeah,
And I know, I'm gonna say it kind of broad, but, and I don't think I'm speaking out of line, but even just speaking for myself, mind muscle is a big, it's a, I'm trying to think of the word. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for me. I know it's very difficult for, a lot of other veterans, right? Being able to form that mind muscle connection.
yeah,
Um, and through our conversations, it's like this dance, this flow like that, it really seems almost like kind of a missing piece there, right?
yeah, yeah,
So definitely excited to continue talking, with you and building our relationship, and seeing what we can bring, to our veteran athletes too. Because I think there's just so much crossover there, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, that's really neat. Um, Chris, I do have one last question for you today. Um, and it's something we like to ask all of our guests when they come on the coach's corner. One of our favorite sayings at Catch a Lift is, Cal Strong. Our veterans are Cal Strong for a variety of reasons, and you certainly exemplify Cal's strength too, Chris. Chris, what does being Cal Strong mean to you?
Well, when I looked at the website and I saw, I don't remember the exact words, but they were very specific. It had to do with when I think of cow strength and connecting with cow strength, I think of the promotion of mental and physical well-being along with this environment, this community environment. So you you don't get lost in this. This is something that is beneficial and inclusive, and there's everybody can do this. You know, so that's what I think of with Kyle Strong. I mean, I'm very impressed with Kyle Strong.
Heck yeah.
I'm saying Kyle Strong, and it's actually just Cal. but Cal's
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
Cal Strong definitely, our athletes all exemplify it, right, in a variety of ways and our supporters and everything. Um, and it's become a to me, it's a unique thing, right, what it kinda means to everybody, what that means
Yeah,
for them. Um, wow, Chris, thank you so very much for coming on today, for sharing your story and your light with us all today. Thank you for, taking this time to talk to us not only about your individual journey, but this tremendous work you're doing within the Parkinson's community. Um, like I said, it obviously hit me in a very personal way, but I know that, your story and the work that you're doing will resonate with a lot of other individuals, and so we're so very grateful for you to come on and talk to us today about dance, and I really look forward to being able to, talk to you more about, how we can hopefully get some veterans involved in dance as well.
oh yeah, no, I think it's very essential, and I think we're in a day and age now where a lot of people have a lot of stuff going on, and there has to be something that brings us together and
Yeah,
sustains us through the stuff that's going on. And I think that just having Parkinson's has sort of just opened up a whole thing for me in terms of, realizing that a lot of other people have the same thing. And it's just, what are we doing? What are
right.
we? So I am very much wanting to be a part of things that are based in what we talked about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Chris.
Well,
That's
thank you,
it.
Melissa. And you're
Oh,
just,
absolutely.
yeah, I just want to tell just another shout out that you're very good at what you do. So
Truly, thank you for your kind words. I really do appreciate that. It's a great honor to be able to sit on this side and talk to you and so many tremendous guests. It's an absolute honor, Chris.
thank you.
That's it for this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. We will return next Wednesday at 1 Eastern Time with another episode. Thank you again, Chris, for sharing your story and your light with us all today. It was absolutely tremendous. Thank you to ID Technologies for your support of this Coach's Corner podcast. Thank you to Lynn Coughlin, Henry Pomper, and Kaylee Nasiri for all of the work you do week after week to make this podcast possible. And we thank the entire Catch a Lift team. Don't forget to join us every Wednesday live at 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for a chance to win Cal Swag and a chat with your brothers and sisters. Until next week, keep it real and stay Cal strong.